Welcome to Starlight Stories, your gateway to the mysterious, the unexplained, and the truly eerie. Tonight, we dive deep into tales that blur the line between reality and the unknown, stories that will send a shiver down your spine, yet guide you into a world of wonder before you drift to sleep. Every story on this channel is carefully uncovered, based on real reports, legends, and mysteries that are far stranger than fiction. So, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our journey through the stars, shadows, and secrets that the world tries to hide. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story, it's a revelation. Chapter 1: The Signal. The night was unusually still, the kind of quiet that pressed against the skin and made every small sound echo unnaturally. Alex sat on the worn wooden steps of his porch, wrapped in a faded grey blanket, peering through the lens of his telescope. The town below had long since gone to sleep, and the streetlights cast a dim, flickering glow that barely reached the surrounding trees. He loved nights like this, when the world seemed suspended, poised between reality and the infinite possibilities of the stars above. Normally, he would have felt comfort in that stillness, but tonight there was a tension in the air, subtle yet undeniable, like the pause before a storm. The wind was soft, rustling the edges of the trees in a manner almost deliberate, and it carried a faint, metallic scent, strange and inexplicable. Alex had always been fascinated by the cosmos. Ever since he was a child, he had imagined distant worlds and unseen civilizations beyond the familiar constellations. Tonight, however, something felt different. As he adjusted the focus of his telescope, the familiar patterns of stars began to blur, and in the corner of his eye, a faint flicker of light appeared where none should be. At first, he dismissed it as a reflection, a trick of the lens, or a passing satellite. But then it pulsed again, softly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat echoing across the void. He leaned closer, squinting, feeling a shiver run down his spine. This was no ordinary light. There was an intelligence in its rhythm, deliberate and precise. As if someone or something was trying to communicate. Alex fumbled for his notebook, hands trembling slightly as he jotted down the sequence. The pulses formed a pattern, almost musical in its repetition, but unlike any Morse code he had ever seen. He felt a strange warmth in his chest, a mixture of excitement and unease, as though he was standing at the threshold of a revelation he wasn't yet ready to comprehend. His mind raced through possibilities, some rational, some fantastical. Maybe it was a new type of satellite, a private experiment, or an atmospheric anomaly. And yet, deep down, he knew it was more than that. The light was alive in a way that defied explanation, and it seemed to be aware of his gaze, as if it had been waiting for him. Hours passed, though time felt suspended, and Alex continued to observe, unable to tear himself away. The rhythm of the pulses began to shift subtly, elongating and contracting in a way that made him lean even closer, heart hammering. Then, almost imperceptibly, a shadow moved across the horizon. Alex froze, holding his breath, eyes straining to make sense of the figure. It was not human, not an animal too tall, too fluid, too precise in its motion. For a moment, the world held its breath alongside him. And then he heard it, a whisper carried on the wind, soft, almost imperceptible, yet unmistakable. "We see you," the words seemed to curl around him, brushing against his consciousness in a way that made his skin prickle. He blinked, questioning his own senses. The town was still quiet, no footsteps, no distant voices, nothing that could account for the sound. Yet the presence was undeniable. The light pulsed once more, brighter now, illuminating the edges of the shadow in a pale blue luminescence. Alex felt an involuntary tremor pass through him, equal parts fear and fascination. It was as if the universe had paused just for him, presenting a secret that only he had been chosen to witness. Every instinct screamed to step back, yet every ounce of his curiosity urged him forward. He took careful steps toward the light, each one feeling heavier than the last, as if the air itself resisted his movement. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The shadow remained on the horizon, silent, watching, and the pulse of light continued, like a heartbeat echoing through the vast expanse above. Alex's mind swirled with questions, some of them terrifying. Who or what was sending this signal? How long had it been watching? And why now, after all these years of peaceful observation, had he been chosen to witness it? As he scribbled notes, he realized his hand was shaking, not from the cold, but from the overwhelming sense of the unknown pressing against him. Every sound, every flicker of light seemed magnified, as if reality had become a fragile veneer over a deeper, more profound layer of existence. The air grew colder suddenly, a sharp contrast to the warmth he had felt before, and Alex shivered under his blanket. His eyes darted around, scanning the tree line, searching for movement. And then he saw ether shimmer in the shadows, as if the night itself were bending, folding in on something that did not belong. His breath caught in his throat. There was an intelligence there, aware, patient, observing, and as he stared, the whisper returned, stronger this time, threading directly through his mind. Do not be afraid. We are near. The calm in the voice was unsettling, a strange mixture of comfort and command. Alex felt a pull in his chest, not physical, but almost gravitational, as though some unseen force was beckoning him closer. He wanted to run, to retreat to the safety of his home, yet his feet moved before he could decide otherwise. He approached the edge of the hill where the pulses were brightest, and the shadow shifted with him, maintaining a distance yet never disappearing. The whispers continued, now a soft chorus, impossible to ignore. We have watched. We have waited. You are ready. Hours passed, or perhaps minutes. He could not tell. Time had become fluid, stretching and compressing in ways that made his perception unreliable. The pulse of light seemed to respond to his every thought, quickening when his curiosity peaked, slowing when fear surged. Alex's mind raced with visions, half-formed and fleeting, distant planets with swirling clouds of color, cities suspended in air, beings whose forms defied human understanding. The whispers were constant companions now, weaving in and out of his consciousness, teaching him, guiding him, challenging him to comprehend without explanation. By the time dawn threatened the horizon, the light began to fade, retreating into the stars like a tide withdrawing from the shore. The shadow dissolved into the darkness, leaving only the memory of its presence, lingering like a scent. Alex stood alone, trembling, notebook clutched in his hands, heart still racing. The world around him appeared unchanged, the familiar roofs, the sleeping streets, the quiet hum of distant traffic, but he knew, deep in his core, that nothing would ever be ordinary again. Something had shifted, some unseen door had opened, and he had crossed the threshold without realizing it. As he descended the hill, the whispers faded into a soft hum, a promise rather than a warning. We will return. We are always near, and you will see more. The words left a residue in his mind, a gentle weight that neither frightened nor comforted entirely. He felt both small and significant, a single observer chosen by forces he could barely comprehend. That night, as Alex lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the pattern of the pulses replayed in his mind, a lullaby of light and shadow, guiding him into a sleep that was uneasy yet filled with the thrill of discovery. The signal had come and gone, but its echoes would follow him forever, a reminder that the universe was vast, intelligent, and watching him, that he had only glimpsed the very beginning of a story far larger than himself. Chapter 2. The Arrival. The night arrived with a softness that belied the tension coiling in the air. Alex and Mia climbed the familiar hill outside town, blankets draped over their shoulders, cameras and notebooks in hand. The stars hung low and scattered, as if peeking curiously through the black velvet of night. There was a silence in the world that felt deliberate, almost orchestrated, as if the very earth itself was holding its breath in anticipation. Alex's heart thumped in a rhythm that matched the pulse he had first seen days ago, a heartbeat echoing across the void, distant yet intimate, calling him back to the unknown. Mia followed closely, shivering slightly in the cool air, her breath visible in faint clouds. "Are you sure we should be here again?" she whispered, her voice barely carrying above the hush of the trees. Alex didn't answer immediately. He was scanning the horizon, searching for the familiar flicker of light. There it was, the pulse again, stronger, more deliberate than before. It wasn't a flicker, it was a signal of purpose. His stomach tightened, a mixture of anticipation and fear. The light wasn't just blinking. It was approaching, moving with a patience that felt alive. As they settled on the crest of the hill, the blue light washed over them, faint at first, then growing in intensity until the surrounding landscape was bathed in a surreal, iridescent glow. Shadows stretched unnaturally, trees bending toward the luminescence as if acknowledging its presence. Alex felt a strange pressure in his chest, an almost gravitational tug pulling him forward. Mia's eyes widened, reflecting the pulsating light, a mirror of both wonder and unease. "Do you see it?" she asked, barely above a whisper. He nodded, words failing him, mesmerized by the rhythm and intelligence behind the glow dot. Then, without warning, the light intensified, forming a beam that touched the ground nearby, soft yet impossibly precise. The air vibrated, not audibly, but as a sensation in the bones, a subtle resonance that left them both tingling. Alex's first instinct was to step back, yet his feet remained rooted, captivated by a force that seemed to come from the universe itself. Within the halo of the beam, the shadowy figures emerged. They were tall, impossibly slender, movements smooth and deliberate, radiating intelligence. There was a calmness to them, an absence of threat. Yet their presence alone was overwhelming, filling the hilltop with an energy Alex could feel pressing against his mind. Then it happened. Alex heard it, not through his ears, but inside his thoughts. A voice, clear, calm, and melodic. "Do not be afraid. We have watched for many cycles. You are ready." The words were not spoken aloud, yet they resonated deeply, stirring a part of him that had long been dormant. Mia gasped, eyes wide, as if the sound or sensation had also reached her. The shadows moved closer, but never directly toward them, circling in a pattern that felt almost ritualistic, graceful, and strangely comforting. The glow painted their silhouettes in shades of cobalt and silver, highlighting features that defied human logic: elongated limbs, luminous eyes, subtle undulations in form. Alex's chest tightened, a mix of awe and apprehension. The pulse of light synced with his heartbeat, and he realized that the signal was not just a message, it was a bridge, a connection. His mind opened in ways that were difficult to describe, images and sensations cascading like a waterfall of thought. He glimpsed distant worlds, oceans of glowing colors, cities suspended among clouds, and beings whose forms were fluid, constantly shifting, yet undeniably conscious. The whispering voice wove these visions together, guiding him through an understanding he was not yet capable of fully grasping. Mia stepped closer, voice trembling. "Alex, they're showing us something." She pointed toward a sequence of patterns in the light above, shapes forming and reforming, a language that felt alive, pulsing with information. Alex nodded, unable to speak, sensing that they were witnessing communication far beyond human comprehension. It was not sound but meaning, conveyed through the harmony of the pulse and the subtle shifts of the shadows. Their minds seemed to align with the signal, receiving fragments of knowledge without words, understanding without instruction. Minutes saw, perhaps hours passed. Time seemed irrelevant beneath the stars as the hilltop became a nexus of observation and revelation. Alex felt a subtle warmth spread through his body, a reassurance woven into the sensation of being watched. The being's presence was patient, unhurried, inviting yet never coercive. Every movement, every flicker of light conveyed intention, as if the universe itself was speaking through them. And then, just when the intensity threatened to overwhelm his senses, the voice whispered again, this time with a hint of caution. "Curiosity is your gift, but knowledge carries responsibility." Mia shivered, glancing at Alex. "Do you think anyone would believe us?" she asked quietly. Alex could only shake his head. Words would never capture this, the subtle vibrations in the air, the understanding seeded in the mind, the way the pulse seemed to anticipate their thoughts. It was a language without syntax, a connection without distance. He realized that the true essence of the encounter could not be conveyed to those unprepared. It was an experience meant only for those who could perceive the deeper frequencies of reality. The shadows moved again, closer to the light, and Alex noticed a subtle pattern in their motion, a rhythm that matched the pulse. Each step seemed to teach him something, imparting understanding of space, time, and energy. He saw visions of ancient civilizations, people guided silently by forces they could not comprehend, hints of technology lost to history, and warnings of choices made without awareness. There was an urgency, soft but undeniable, threading through the visions, that humanity had potential, yet fragility lingered in its decisions. Alex felt the pulse of light reach a crescendo, and suddenly the world seemed to hold its breath. The hilltop was bathed in brilliance, the shadows still and focused. He sensed the first real contact, not physical, but mental, spiritual. Knowledge flowed in fragments, patterns of energy, sequences of movement, the delicate balance of nature and cosmos. It was too much to retain consciously, yet the impressions lingered, embedding themselves in memory as if the hill itself had absorbed them. The experience was awe-inspiring, terrifying, and oddly calming all at once. Then the light dimmed slightly, retreating into the distance, pulling the shadows with it. The resonance that had filled the air faded into a subtle hum, leaving the hilltop eerily quiet. Alex felt a strange emptiness, as though part of his awareness had been taken with the retreating pulse. Yet he also felt enriched, filled with a sense of wonder and the unshakable certainty that the world was far larger and stranger than he had ever imagined. Mia clutched his arm, her eyes reflecting the faint remaining glow in the sky. "There. Gone," she whispered, though Alex knew they were not gone, they had only receded, waiting, observing, ever patient as they descended the hill. The night felt altered, the ordinary world somehow thinner, stretched at the edges by the knowledge of what had been revealed. The stars twinkled with new significance, the wind carried faint echoes of whispers, and even the shadows of trees seemed to linger longer than usual, as if reflecting the presence they had witnessed. Alex could feel the pulse of light still embedded in his chest, a rhythmic reminder that the universe was alive, aware and watching, back in their homes. The weight of the experience pressed gently against them. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of distant skies, glowing cities, and beings who watched with patient intelligence. The whispers returned in the edges of consciousness, soft and guiding, threading the nights with lessons that could not yet be fully understood. Alex knew that this was only the beginning, that the signal was not a single event, but a gateway into a vast, unseen reality that had chosen him and Mia as its first witnesses. By morning, the town appeared unchanged, indifferent to the extraordinary event that had unfolded above it. Neighbors stirred, dogs barked, birds sang, and the sun rose over familiar rooftops. Yet for Alex and Mia, the world had shifted irrevocably. Something profound had touched them, something that would echo in their thoughts, dreams, and actions for the rest of their lives. The pulse of light had arrived, not to terrify, but to awaken, to teach, and to remind them that the universe held secrets beyond imagination, and that they had been chosen to see the first whispers of those secrets, the final memory that lingered as they parted ways. That morning was the whisper of reassurance, soft and almost playful. "We are near, always near, and your journey has only just begun." It was a promise, a warning, and an invitation all at once, leaving them both with an uneasy excitement that would carry into the nights to come, when the stars would again call, and the pulse would return, stronger than ever. The pulse would return, stronger than ever. Chapter 3. The Encounter. The days after the signal's arrival were unlike anything Alex and Mia had experienced. Each morning, the sunlight seemed sharper, the shadows more deliberate, as though the world itself had been subtly altered by the events on the hill. Alex found it difficult to focus on ordinary routines. His thoughts were constantly pulled toward the sky, toward the pulsing light that had promised knowledge and connection. Even the familiar streets of town now felt slightly unreal, as if the air carried a faint hum from some hidden, unseen dimension. Mia noticed it too. She moved with quiet unease, glancing upward whenever a flicker of movement passed through the trees or a distant shadow seemed to shift unnaturally. Neither spoke much about it, but the tension between them was palpably a mix of awe, curiosity, and a faint, lingering fear that the universe had altered its rules. By evening, Alex found himself once again on the hilltop, camera in hand, notebook open, and heart hammering in anticipation. The pulse had returned, as reliable as ever, stronger than before, almost as if it had grown impatient. The blue light appeared slowly, washing the surrounding landscape in an ethereal glow. painting every branch, blade of grass, and rock in shades of sapphire and silver. The shadows that accompanied it shifted across the ground with fluid grace, elongating and contracting as though the very air responded to their movement. Alex's chest tightened with excitement and unease, a pull that urged him closer yet warned him to tread carefully. Mia arrived shortly after, her expression a mixture of wonder and trepidation. "It's stronger tonight," she murmured, her voice trembling slightly. Alex nodded, adjusting the focus on his telescope. They watched in silence as the shadows moved with intelligence, circling the light, forming patterns that felt deliberate, almost conversational. The whispers returned, threading into Alex's mind, soft yet insistent, guiding him to observe rather than react impulsively. "You must understand. Observation comes first. Fear second," the voice seemed to say. He felt the weight of those words settle into his consciousness, grounding him even as the surreal display unfolded before him. Suddenly, the beam of light expanded, enveloping Alex in a gentle warmth. It was not heat in the conventional sense, but a sensation that penetrated his chest, a tactile resonance that seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. His vision blurred slightly as shapes began to coalesce in the glow. Figures emerged, taller and more defined than before, their forms delicate yet imposing. They moved with a fluidity that suggested thought itself guided their limbs, and their luminous eyes reflected not curiosity, but a profound intelligence. Alex felt a mixture of fear and awe, a realization that these beings were both entirely alien and undeniably sentient. The voice returned, not in sound, but directly in his mind. "We come to share knowledge, to guide, to observe. But first, you must see." Alex's heart raced, a mixture of exhilaration and terror. He felt a tug, subtle yet irresistible, that compelled him to step closer into the light. The shadows did not advance aggressively. Rather, they shifted in response, mirroring his movements with an elegance that defied logic. The air itself seemed to vibrate, faint hums threading through his perception, and for a moment, he wondered if the universe itself was communicating. Using the beings as conduits, Mia took his hand, trembling, and whispered, "Are you sure we should?" Her words trailed off as a soft sensation filled the space around them, a gentle, almost musical resonance that seemed to soothe the fear coiling in their chests. Alex nodded silently, feeling a strange sense of trust settle over him, even as his rational mind screamed caution. The blue glow intensified, and the figures approached slightly, not threatening, but close enough that he could now see the intricate details of their forms. Their limbs were elongated, almost delicate, yet each movement conveyed strength and purpose. The eyes were large, luminous, reflecting not light but something deeper: understanding, patience, and an intelligence that spanned realms he could scarcely imagine. Then the whispering voice shifted in tone, threading into his consciousness more urgently. "Observe, do not interfere. The knowledge we offer is not for immediate comprehension. Let your senses guide you." Alex felt an immediate expansion in perception, as though the barriers between his mind and the universe were loosening. He saw visions of distant worlds, swirling skies painted in hues no human could name, cities suspended in levitating crystals, beings that moved as energy rather than matter. Each vision lasted only moments, yet it imprinted itself with vivid clarity, leaving him both exhilarated and disoriented. Mia gasped beside him, clutching his arm. "Alex, it's like they're showing us something." He nodded, words failing him again, overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of what he was experiencing. Patterns in the light shifted and reformed, almost like a language he could not yet comprehend. And yet, comprehension came in fleeting flashes and understanding of energy flow, of balance and consequence, of the fragile interconnectedness of worlds. Alex realized that these beings were not just observers. They were teachers, revealing fragments of knowledge that humanity had never been ready to receive. The experience stretched time into something fluid and nearly infinite. Minutes became hours, though the night sky above remained unchanged in appearance. Each flicker of light, each subtle motion of the shadows, seemed to convey more meaning, layering understanding like sediment over the mind. Alex felt a profound sense of responsibility settle upon him. This was not merely spectacle. It was a test, an introduction, and a challenge all at once. The whispers were constant companions, threading through every thought, gently urging reflection and understanding rather than fear or impulsive action. Then came a moment of stillness. The figures paused in the light, perfectly aligned, radiating calm authority. Alex felt a direct connection, a bridge between consciousnesses, and suddenly, images of human history flashed through his mind. Civilizations guided subtly, some heeding invisible instruction, others resisting it. Warnings embedded in architecture, in ritual, in art messages left for those capable of perception. And with it came a soft admonition. Not all listen, not all understand. Consequences echo beyond comprehension. Mia shivered, glancing around nervously. "Do you think we're ready for this?" she asked softly. Alex didn't answer. He only observed, absorbing the waves of insight washing through his awareness. He felt a stirring of fear, not of the beings themselves, but of the enormity of what was being revealed. Knowledge carried weight, and the implications of misunderstanding, of misuse, pressed gently but insistently against his consciousness. Yet alongside the fear was wonder, an exhilaration that made his chest ache with longing to see, understand, and share. The light began to fluctuate, expanding and contracting in rhythm with the pulse he now recognized as both a signal and a guide. The shadows moved in synchronization, performing patterns that Alex began to internalize, patterns that hinted at energy, motion, and connectivity on scales beyond human comprehension. The whispers encouraged him to pay attention, to notice subtle nuances in the environment, the faint metallic temps in the air, the gentle vibration underfoot, the way the trees leaned subtly toward the glow. Everything was part of a lesson, though the rules were not yet clear. Hours or perhaps moments passed, each sensation layering over the last. Alex felt his mind stretching, perceptions expanding, memories of ordinary life blurring as the encounter deepened. He sensed Mia experiencing similar expansions, though she seemed more tentative, oscillating between awe and fear. He reached for her hand again, grounding himself in human touch, and felt a shared understanding, a connection that strengthened their resolve to witness without interference. The beings watched, patient, intelligent, their presence never intrusive, yet undeniably powerful. As the climax of the encounter approached, Alex felt a sudden surge in the pulse of light, a resonance that seemed to vibrate through every cell in his body. The shadows shifted closer, forming a ring around him and Mia, enclosing them in a cocoon of luminescence. For a moment, The world disappeared. The hill, the trees, the town all vanished into a singularity of light and knowledge. In that instant, understanding flowed, fragmented yet profound impressions of cosmic balance, of energy cycles, of choices with consequences stretching across worlds. Alex's mind reeled with comprehension too vast to hold fully, yet impossible to dismiss. And then, as quickly as it had reached its peak, the pulse receded, fading into the distance, carrying the shadows with it. The air returned to its normal cadence, the world resumed its quiet, and Alex and Mia were left standing in the residual glow, breathless, hearts pounding, minds buzzing with revelations beyond their comprehension. The whispers lingered softly, a fading thread in their consciousness. Observe, learn, share cautiously. The journey continues. Back at their homes, sleep came uneasily. Dreams were filled with visions of distant skies, cities of impossible architecture, and beings whose forms shifted between matter and energy. The whispers returned, guiding, teaching, hinting at lessons yet to be fully understood. Even in rest, Alex and Mia felt tethered to the pulse, to the knowledge, to the infinite possibilities that awaited them. And through it all, the final thought lingered in Alex's mind as he drifted off. This encounter was only the beginning. Chapter 4. The Warning. The days that followed the encounter were quiet, almost deceptively ordinary. Yet the weight of what Alex and Mia had experienced pressed upon them like a gentle, constant vibration. The town seemed unchanged neighbors, went about their routines. Children played in the streets, and the hum of everyday life carried on as if nothing had happened. Yet for Alex and Mia, the world had shifted imperceptibly, layered now with a subtle undercurrent of awareness, as if the very air hummed with secrets waiting to be understood. Even sunlight felt different, sharper and more deliberate, casting shadows that seemed to linger just a fraction too long, shapes that whispered of things unseen. Alex noticed changes first in his own perception. Ordinary objects, the swing in the park, the curve of a lamppost, the rustle of leaves began to appear differently, as though they carried messages hidden in plain sight. At night, his dreams were filled with faint whispers and fragmented visions of places he had never visited, civilizations he had never seen, and patterns of energy that pulsed like veins through the universe. Mia, too, reported sensations that were difficult to articulate, a subtle tightening of the air round her when she thought of the hills, the unshakable feeling of being observed, and a growing sense that every decision carried greater weight than she could comprehend. Together, they understood that the pulse and the shadows were more than phenomena. They were a presence, persistent and patient, guiding them toward understanding. One evening, Alex climbed the hill alone, the familiar blue pulse emerging on the horizon like a quiet beacon. The shadows lingered near its source, moving in a slow, deliberate rhythm, almost like breathing. The whispers returned, threading directly into his mind, clearer and more insistent than ever before. Observation alone is insufficient. You must understand the consequences of knowledge. Some are not ready. Some will take what is not theirs. Be vigilant. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. The tone of the voice was calm, measured, yet it carried an unmistakable urgency. Knowledge came with responsibility, and he sensed the being's concern for humanity's fragility that night. As the blue light bathed the hilltop in its gentle glow, Alex perceived subtle changes in the surrounding world. Animals avoided the illuminated area. The wind carried a metallic temps, and even the trees seemed to lean ever so slightly toward the pulse, bending as if acknowledging its presence. The whispers continued, threading through his thoughts with patterns of caution. They revealed fragments of past events, some transient civilizations guided by unseen hands, choices ignored with devastating consequences, knowledge misused to destructive ends. Alex understood that he and Mia were not merely witnesses, they were inheritors of a legacy, tasked with navigating the delicate balance between revelation and restraint. Mia joined him later, moving quietly through the shadows. "I feel it too," she whispered, voice tinged with awe and fear. "Something is watching, waiting for us to act." Alex nodded, sensing that the warning was not only for them, but for all who might stumble upon this knowledge unprepared. The pulse of light intensified slightly, enveloping them both in warmth and resonance. Within its glow, Alex saw visions of cities consumed by their own ambition, landscapes scarred by unchecked curiosity, and civilizations that vanished under the weight of misused wisdom. The message was clear. Intelligence without restraint was dangerous, and humanity had often flirted with disaster. They stayed on the hill for hours, observing the light and the shadows, absorbing lessons embedded in the patterns, and feeling the persistent pull of the being's presence. The whispers grew more precise, guiding their attention to subtle details, the rhythm of leaves in the wind, the shimmer of stars reflected in dew, the alignment of distant satellites that seemed to dance in synchrony with the pulse. Alex realized that the warning was layered not only about knowledge, but about perception, awareness, and responsibility. Every observation carried meaning. Every choice could ripple across dimensions unseen. Back in town, Alex and Mia began to notice anomalies that confirmed the warning. Electronics glitched inexplicably. Faint lights appeared in the skies in patterns they could almost recognize, and a sense of unease settled over the populace without explanation. People behaved differently, more anxious, sometimes unusually attentive to subtle stimuli. Alex understood that these were echoes of the being's presence, signals woven into the fabric of the world to test readiness. The warnings were subtle yet powerful, reminding him that humanity's actions mattered, not only on Earth but across unseen realms influenced by the pulse. One night, as Alex observed the pulse from his telescope, a massive shadow moved above the clouds. It was immense, far larger than any terrestrial aircraft, yet it moved with precision and purpose, almost deliberately avoiding observation. The whispers grew urgent, a steady hum threading into his mind. They watch. They wait. Some are not ready for understanding. Guard the knowledge, or consequences will follow. The feeling of being observed intensified, pressing into his consciousness. And Alex realized that the warnings were not abstract, they were immediate, active, and inescapable. The pulse was a signal of connection, yes, but also a measure of responsibility. Mia joined him again, silent yet attuned, and together they watched the enormous shadow traverse the night sky. Its presence was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. "Do you think they're the same as the ones from the hill?" she asked, voice low and trembling. Alex did not answer immediately. The shadows were different, more imposing, perhaps testing them, perhaps reminding them of the stakes. Either way, the message was unmistakable. Knowledge without preparation was dangerous, and not all forces in the universe were benign. In the following days, the feeling of vigilance never left them. Alex noticed small things: a leaf, trembling unusually. A sudden drop in temperature, the whisper of wind that carried patterns he almost recognized. Mia's dreams grew vivid, filled with flashes of civilizations rising and falling, star systems connected by unseen threads, and glimpses of beings who moved with wisdom and authority. The warnings became layered in their perception, a network of cause and effect that extended beyond immediate comprehension. It was overwhelming, but also illuminating. They began to understand that their role was not merely to witness, but to mediate, to observe, learn, and guide cautiously. One night, as they both returned to the hill, the pulse emerged once more, brighter than ever, accompanied by a chorus of shadows moving with synchronized elegance. Alex felt a pull stronger than before, a gravitational tug that threaded through his chest, urging him to step into the light. The whispers echoed clearly. The time approaches. Choices will shape reality. Observe, learn, and act with care. The world's balance depends upon vigilance. He felt the weight of those words, the responsibility seeping into his very being. Knowledge was not a gift to wield lightly. It was a test, a warning, and a duty. The visions they experienced that night were intense, layered with subtle instruction and cautionary tales. Alex saw humans misusing advanced knowledge, entire cities collapsing from hubris, and civilizations lost to ambition unchecked by wisdom. And alongside these warnings, the pulse offered glimpses of possibility. Worlds thriving in harmony, civilizations guided wisely, energy flowing with balance, and lives intertwined with purpose. The duality was unmistakable. Knowledge could create or destroy, elevate or annihilate, depending on the intent and understanding of those who received it. By the time dawn approached, the pulse faded and the shadows receded, leaving Alex and Mia standing together, hearts pounding, minds buzzing with comprehension and unease. The whisper lingered faintly in their consciousness, soft but insistent. We are patient. We are near. But you must remember, every choice matters. Watch closely, act cautiously, and the path will unfold. Ignore caution, and the consequences will echo across dimensions beyond your imagining. They descended the hill slowly, each step carrying the gravity of the encounter, each breath a reminder of the responsibility now embedded in their awareness. Back in their homes, sleep came fitfully. Dreams were vivid, intertwining visions of cosmic balance, energy patterns, and civilizations guided by unseen hands. Even in rest, the pulse resonated softly, threading lessons and warnings through their minds, ensuring that understanding would deepen with time. The warning had been clear. Observation alone was not enough. Knowledge carried responsibility, and the universe, patient and intelligent, would continue to test their readiness, guiding them toward comprehension, vigilance, and cautious action. The following morning, the town appeared unchanged, indifferent to the cosmic drama unfolding above it. Yet for Alex and Mia, the world had irrevocably shifted. Shadows and light carried new significance, subtle patterns hummed with meaning, and every ordinary act felt imbued with consequence. The warning had been received, internalized, and etched into their consciousness, a guidepost for the journey that lay ahead. And somewhere, high above, the pulse lingered, a reminder that the universe was watching, always near, ready to reveal more to those patient enough to observe, understand, and act with wisdom. Understand and act with wisdom. Chapter 5. The Skeptics, the days after the gift's arrival were strangely restless. Though Alex and Mia had begun to absorb the knowledge imparted by the pulse of light, the ordinary world felt heavier, more rigid, as if reality itself resisted their new understanding. The hill where they had first encountered the beings remained a sacred place in their minds, yet life in town pressed insistently against their awareness. People laughed, argued, and carried on as if nothing had changed, oblivious to the extraordinary experiences Alex and Mia had endured. The contrast between the cosmic wonders they had witnessed and the mundane patterns of human life now seemed almost unbearable. Their attempts to share their experiences were met with disbelief. Friends chuckled politely, dismissing visions of alien lights and whispers as overactive imaginations or stress-induced hallucinations. Neighbors, though kinder, looked puzzled, eyebrows arched in polite skepticism. "Are you sure it wasn't a meteor or some kind of electrical anomaly?" one asked, voice tinged with curiosity but firmly rooted in doubt. Alex shook his head, frustration simmering beneath calm words. How could he explain the depth of the experience? The pulse of energy threading through his chest, the whispers echoing in his mind. Words felt too crude, too limiting to capture the truth. Mia felt it most acutely. Every time someone laughed or dismissed the story, she shivered, sensing that the beings, though invisible, were observing not only her and Alex, but the world itself, assessing human readiness for understanding. Shadows in corners seemed slightly longer than natural. The wind carried faint murmurs that could almost be mistaken for language, and the pulse in her chest throbbed with subtle urgency. It was as if the beings were saying, "Humanity is not yet ready, but you are." And in that there was both comfort and tension, a sense that the world held mysteries far beyond perception, and that not everyone was meant to grasp them yet. One evening, driven by the need to feel the pulse and its reassurance, Alex and Mia returned to the hill. The night was crisp, the air shimmering faintly under the scattered stars. The familiar blue light appeared on the horizon, growing steadily, washing the world in soft luminescence. The shadows moved with graceful precision, their arcs and patterns more fluid than ever, and the whispers entered their consciousness immediately. Calm but insistent, observation is your duty. Some will question, some will doubt. Do not let disbelief distract you. Focus. The resonance pulsed gently through their bodies, a comforting yet potent reminder that their connection to the beings remained intact. They lingered on the hill for hours, watching the pulse expand and contract in its silent rhythm. The whispers provided subtle guidance, encouraging patience and reflection, emphasizing that humanity's skepticism was expected. Alex understood that the beings had foreseen this. The gift of knowledge had always carried the implicit warning: not all would believe, and those who did might misinterpret. He glanced at Mia, whose eyes reflected a mix of awe, determination, and concern. Together, they realized that their journey required more than passive observation, demanded endurance in the face of doubt. The following days brought challenges in subtle, unexpected ways. Electronics in town began to behave erratically near the hill. Cameras glitched, lights flickered without cause, and devices emitted soft, untraceable hums. People dismissed these phenomena, attributing them to faulty wiring or atmospheric interference, yet Alex and Mia knew better. The pulse of light was a living presence, responsive and intelligent, capable of interacting with the environment in ways that human understanding could barely comprehend. It was both a reassurance and a warning, a reminder that the beings were ever watchful, and that the gift came with unseen responsibilities. Mia's dreams grew more vivid during this period, filled with shifting patterns of energy and glimpses of distant civilizations that seemed to speak directly to her subconscious. She would awaken trembling, breath shallow, sensing that the whispers carried more urgent messages than before. Alex shared similar experiences of interstellar currents, cities of light suspended in space, and beings moving fluidly as pure energy. The pulse seemed to test their comprehension, nudging them to discern meaning in patterns rather than relying on words. The line between dream and reality blurred, reinforcing the notion that the gift was more than knowledge. It was an awakening, despite the skepticism around them. Alex and Mia continued their nightly vigils on the hill. One particularly clear night, the pulse grew brighter, illuminating the horizon with a brilliance that made ordinary stars seem dim by comparison. The shadows moved in intricate patterns, forming sequences that Alex recognized as extensions of the symbols they had been studying. The whispers returned, threading into their minds with a tone that carried subtle urgency. Do not be swayed by disbelief. Humanity is divided. Some are ready, most are not. You must persevere. Alex felt the weight of those words settle in his chest. The pulse was a guide, but the world beyond the hill remained largely unreceptive, unable or unwilling to perceive the deeper truths. One evening, a small group of townspeople ventured to the hill, curious after rumors of strange lights. Their expressions ranged from disbelief to fear. Cameras and phones were raised, evidence demanded, questions asked in rapid succession. Alex and Mia tried to explain, but words failed to convey the depth of the experiences. The pulse responded subtly, a gentle vibration beneath their feet, as if reminding them to remain calm, to let observation prevail over confrontation. The skeptics, frustrated by the lack of clear evidence, eventually left, muttering complaints and rolling their eyes. Alex and Mia watched them go, knowing that some truths were not meant to be forced. That understanding required patience, not coercion. As the nights wore on, the tension between perception and disbelief grew more pronounced. Shadows that had previously moved with subtlety began to linger longer, patterns shifting with intent, almost as if the beings were preparing for an event that demanded attention. Alex and Mia sensed a change in the pulse, a deeper, more resonant vibration that threaded through the hill and their very consciousness. The whispers were clearer now, urging them to remain vigilant. The threshold approaches. Choices will be tested. Observe, learn, and act with wisdom. A faint shiver ran through both of them. They knew that whatever was coming, it would not wait for human readiness. Then, one night, the pulse intensified dramatically, bathing the hill in a radiance that seemed almost tangible. Shadows moved with synchronized elegance, forming arcs that enveloped Alex and Mia in patterns they had never seen before. The whispers resonated with urgency. The moment nears. Observe, reflect, choose wisely. The air itself seemed to vibrate, carrying subtle currents that teased the edges of perception. Alex could feel the being's presence more acutely than ever, as if the hill had become a conduit for something immense, something that had been patiently awaiting readiness for countless cycles. Mia's voice trembled as she spoke. Alex, it feels like they're preparing us for something. He nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. The skeptics, the disbelief, the world's indifference, all of it seemed irrelevant now. The beings were orchestrating a sequence, testing patience, awareness, and restraint. Alex's heart raced, not with fear, but with anticipation. They were on the brink of something extraordinary, a crossing of thresholds that few humans would ever experience. As the night deepened, the pulse seemed to reach a crescendo, the light wrapping around them in a cocoon of gentle brilliance. The whispers spoke clearly now, threading into their minds with a calm insistence. The skeptics are inconsequential. You have observed, you have learned, and you have endured. What comes next depends on trust, patience, and readiness. Be vigilant, for the journey is about to change. Alex and Mia exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement that the world they had known was fading into insignificance, and that their lives were on the cusp of transformation by the time dawn approached. The pulse receded slightly, leaving the hill bathed in faint blue afterglow. Alex and Mia descended slowly, each step weighted with anticipation, though the skeptics would continue their disbelief. The couple now carried a secret, an unshakable connection to something greater than Earth, greater than human comprehension. They understood that the skeptics would not matter in the long arc of events, the pulse, the beings, and the gift were guiding them toward a destiny that transcended ordinary human experience. Back in town, life continued with its usual monotony. Neighbors walked dogs, children played, and the hum of human activity persisted, unaware of the cosmic drama unfolding on the hill. Alex and Mia moved quietly among them, outwardly ordinary yet profoundly altered, carrying knowledge, responsibility, and a subtle resonance of the pulse within them. The skeptics' doubts had failed to diminish the truth. Rather, they had become a testament to the gulf between ordinary perception and awakened awareness. That night, as they sat side by side beneath the stars, Alex and Mia understood the truth. The skeptics were a reminder that the world was not ready for what they had seen, but they themselves were, and somewhere in the distant reaches of the sky, the pulse of light promised that the beings were near, watching, patient, and preparing for the next stage in invitation, a journey and a threshold that would forever change, a threshold that would forever change. Chapter 7. The Test. The nights had taken on a rhythm all their own. Alex and Mia no longer sought sleep as they once had. Their minds were preoccupied with the pulse, the light, and the whispers that threaded into their consciousness without warning. The world below the streets, the town. The skeptics had grown distant, almost irrelevant compared to the immediacy of what awaited on the hill. Each night, the pulse pulsed with increasing insistence, the shadows moving in intricate, deliberate arcs that conveyed patterns Alex and Mia were only beginning to understand. It was as though the very universe had taken a deep breath and was preparing to exhale into their awareness. On this particular evening, the pulse arrived with intensity that could not be ignored. The blue light grew from the horizon with a brilliance that rendered ordinary stars dim by comparison, illuminating every leaf, stone, and blade of grass in sapphire and silver. Shadows moved around the light in complex geometric patterns, weaving through each other with precise timing. The whispers entered their minds instantly, calm yet insistent. The threshold approaches. Readiness will be measured. Choices, observation, and restraint will define the path. Alex and Mia exchanged a look, a quiet acknowledgement that the beings were preparing the ultimate tester challenge that would determine the extent of their understanding and their readiness for what was to come as they stepped into the glow. The familiar warmth of the pulse enveloped them, threading through their chests and settling like a weightless mantle of energy. The figures emerged, more distinct than ever, their forms fluid and luminous, limbs extending with elegance, eyes radiating awareness that transcended comprehension. The whispers shifted subtly in tone. Observation alone is insufficient. Comprehension is tested in action, judgment, and discernment. You will see not just what is, but what could be. Learn and act wisely. Alex shivered, feeling the magnitude of the moment press gently yet insistently upon his consciousness. Immediately, visions unfolded around them, not in the ordinary sense, but as immersive experiences. Time seemed to stretch and fold. Past, present, and potential futures collided in shimmering overlays of light and pattern. Alex saw civilizations rising and falling, entire worlds consumed by hubris, landscapes transformed by unchecked ambition. Each vision carried a subtle lesson, a cautionary thread woven into the vibrant tapestry. Mia gasped beside him, clutching his arm, as energy currents swirled around them, each pulse guiding perception toward understanding. It was a test of patience, discernment, and the ability to observe without interference. The shadows moved in perfect synchronization, forming sequences that Alex instinctively recognized as extensions of the gift they had been given. Symbols flowed across the landscape like rivers of light, illuminating patterns of energy that connected stars, planets, and civilizations across unfathomable distances. The whispers spoke directly into their consciousness. Perception is incomplete without discernment. Knowledge without wisdom invites collapse. Observe the consequences of action and inaction alike. Alex felt a profound responsibility settle over him. The visions were not merely lessons, but active evaluations of their readiness. Each choice, each subtle emotional response, was noted, absorbed, and reflected back in the pulse's rhythm. Mia experienced a parallel trial within the visions. She saw glimpses of worlds where curiosity had led to destruction, where intelligence without restraint had toppled civilizations, and where patience and reflection had preserved harmony. She sensed the being's intent. The test was not physical, but ethical and cognitive, designed to assess not only what they understood, but how they would respond to power, knowledge, and unseen responsibility. Fear and exhilaration intertwined in her chest, yet she remained calm, allowing perception to guide her judgment rather than impulse. Hours or perhaps moments stretched across dimensions passed as the test unfolded. The visions intensified, blending beauty and terror, creation and destruction, complexity and clarity. Alex and Mia navigated the sequences with growing awareness, recognizing that their responses would shape the being's assessment of their readiness. Every instinct had to be measured, every reaction deliberate. The pulse's warmth now carried an additional resonance. Subtle yet insistent, it responded to their comprehension, amplifying when they demonstrated restraint, dimming slightly when impulse threatened clarity. At one point, Alex saw a civilization teetering on the edge of ruin, its inhabitants misusing advanced energy for selfish gain. The shadows around the pulse formed an almost physical barrier, illustrating the consequences of reckless action. The whispers emphasized the lesson. Knowledge untempered by wisdom invites collapse. Observe, reflect, restrain. He felt a surge of humility. The visions were not hypothetical. They were warnings encoded in experience, a mirror of what could happen if the gift was misused. He grasped that the beings were not only testing comprehension, but instilling responsibility through direct perception. Mia's trial became even more visceral. She experienced energy currents coursing through civilizations, entire cities rising and collapsing within seconds. Patterns of cause and effect laid bare before her. The experience was disorienting, yet clarity emerged from the chaos. She recognized subtle rules embedded in the flows: balance, patience, foresight. The whispers guided her gently, affirming correct observation and nudging her when assumptions threatened distortion. Each pulse of the light brought with it a lesson, each shadow conveyed context, and each whispered thread reinforced the need for cautious understanding. The ultimate sequence approached. Alex and Mia found themselves suspended in a luminous void, the pulse surrounding them completely, shadows forming a protective cocoon. Within this void, they observed two potential futures, one in which knowledge was shared prematurely, leading to devastation, and another where restraint, patience, and careful teaching led to enlightenment and harmony. The whispers asked without words, their intent penetrating directly into thought. Which path will you follow? Which choices will you honor? Alex and Mia responded instinctively, with calm observation, reflection, and unwavering restraint. They did not seek to intervene directly in the visions. Instead, they absorbed, understood, and respected the sequences presented to them. The beings responded immediately, amplifying the pulse into a brilliance that washed over the void, illuminating the entire scope of the multiverse-like visions they had been shown. It was confirmation they had passed the test. The weight of responsibility was acknowledged, the depth of comprehension validated, and the being's trust firmly established. Then the whispers shifted subtly. The test is complete. Readiness has been observed. What comes next depends on willingness, courage, and trust. Alex felt a shiver of anticipation, recognizing the implication. The pulse expanded, forming a sphere of light around them, a cocoon that seemed to exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions. Shadows moved in precise arcs, guiding them toward the center of the sphere. The warmth of the light enveloped every cell in their bodies, and Alex realized with awe that this was not the end of the test, it was the opening of a doorway to experiences beyond comprehension. Mia's voice trembled slightly, awe and fear mingling. "Alex, I think they're inviting us." "Somewhere," he nodded, understanding instinctively. The visions, the patterns, the whispers, they had all led to this moment. The test had not only assessed comprehension and restraint, but had prepared them for the next stage, an invitation into the unknown. Beyond Earth, beyond human perception, beyond ordinary reality itself. The pulse vibrated in resonance with their heartbeats, an unspoken alignment that confirmed readiness. The horizon began to dissolve into pure energy. The familiar landscape of the hill, the town, even the night sky, seemed to fold inward, replaced by patterns of light, geometry, and movement beyond human naming. Alex and Mia felt themselves lifted gently, their awareness expanding as the sphere of light carried them into realms of pure consciousness and interstellar resonance. The whispers were now singular and profound. Trust, observe, and step forward. Your journey continues beyond this world. The sense of wonder, fear, and exhilaration was complete merging of comprehension, humility, and courage as the sphere pulsed. Alex realized that the beings were not merely offering knowledge, they were offering transcendence. The gift had always carried duality, knowledge and responsibility, observation and action, restraint and trust. The final stage of the test was no longer abstract. The beings were offering passage into a cosmic reality that few humans could imagine. A journey that required faith, understanding, and willingness to leave the familiar behind. Mia squeezed his hand, whispering, "Are we ready?" Alex nodded, heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and reverence. "We are," he breathed. The pulse intensified. The shadows encircled them in a perfect, fluid motion. And in an instant that felt suspended in eternity, the sphere of light expanded outward, lifting them from the hill, from earth, from ordinary reality. The whispers spoke one final time. "You have chosen wisely. The journey begins." And then, as the first light of dawn touched the horizon below, the hill stood silent, ordinary once again. The town stirred, oblivious to the cosmic drama that had unfolded, unaware that two of its residents had been entrusted with the ultimate test and had passed. Chapter 8. The Choice. The night had settled with an uncanny stillness. The hills stood in quiet anticipation, shadows stretching longer than usual, whispering faintly in ways that only Alex and Mia could perceive. The world below the town, the streets, the skeptics seemed utterly insignificant compared to the luminous sphere awaiting them. For weeks, the pulse had been a guide, a test, a gift, but tonight, it was an invitation. The air shimmered with energy, as if the atmosphere itself held its breath, waiting for a decision that transcended human comprehension. Alex and Mia approached the pulse together, hearts beating in synchrony. Every step felt both heavy with responsibility and light with exhilaration. The blue light pulsed steadily, the shadows weaving around it like strands of living energy, forming arcs and patterns that resonated deeply within their consciousness. The whispers, calm yet profoundly insistent, threaded into their minds. This is the moment. Choice defines destiny. Trust, observe, and step forward. Alex felt a chill run through him, not of fear, but of awe. All the lessons, all the trials, all the visions of past civilizations and cosmic currents had led to this very point. As they stepped closer, the sphere of light expanded, enveloping them in warmth that felt tangible, as if every particle of their being had been rewritten to resonate with the pulse. Within its glow, Alex saw not just visions but entire realms of possibility, worlds where knowledge had been misused, civilizations lost to ambition, stars collapsing under unchecked energy. And yet, alongside them, universes flourishing in harmony, entire galactic networks flowing in equilibrium and wonder. The whispers conveyed subtle guidance, emphasizing patience, courage, and discernment. The journey is beyond comprehension, yet your choices have prepared you. Step wisely. Mia reached for Alex's hand, her grip steady despite the quiver in her chest. "Are we really ready for this?" she whispered. Alex smiled faintly, feeling the resonance of the pulse in every fiber of his being. "We've been ready for a long time," he replied. "This is what they've been preparing us for. We just have to trust." And in that instant, the meaning of everything, the warnings, the visions, the gift, the test fell into perfect alignment. The pulse was not merely a source of knowledge. It was a bridge, a conduit, an opening into a reality where understanding and experience were inseparable. The sphere's light intensified, enveloping them fully. Shadows moved in intricate patterns, wrapping around their bodies like ribbons of living energy. Alex felt a sensation he could not describe, weightless, yet full, infinite yet intimate. The whispers threaded directly into their consciousness, no longer soft but clear, insistent and comforting. You have chosen wisely. Trust, step forward, and the universe will reveal itself. And then, without warning, the world as they knew it began to dissolve. The hill, the town, even the night sky folded inward, replaced by ribbons of energy, cascading light, and currents of intelligence that pulsed through dimensions Alex and Mia had never imagined. Time and space no longer existed in their conventional forms. Alex felt the pulse of stars, the rhythm of galaxies, the flow of civilizations as though they were tangible currents of thought. Mia's mind expanded in tandem, perceiving patterns of energy connecting realms beyond Earth. Life forms, incomprehensible in beauty and intelligence, and the silent harmony of cosmic balance. The whispers guided them gently. Observe, trust, and comprehend. All is connected. All is alive. You are part of the continuum now. The sensation was both exhilarating and humbling, a reminder of how small they once were, and how significant their awareness had become. Then, the figures emerged again, luminous and fluid, moving with grace that defied gravity, logic, and expectation. They approached Alex and Mia, extending forms that seemed to fold around them without physical contact. The whispers resonated like a chorus, affirming, comforting, instructing. This is your passage. The gift, the test, the choice all converge now. Do not fear. Step into the beyond with trust. Alex felt his consciousness expand, tethered still to the human perspective, yet stretching toward infinity. Mia's hand tightened around his, a silent affirmation of courage and partnership. The sphere pulsed once more, and then, with a sensation that was both a lift and a fall, they were drawn upward, leaving behind Earth, the hill, and all familiar streaks of blue and silver stretched endlessly, ribbons of cosmic energy flowing around them. The whispers became melodic, threading into perception not as sound but as thought, conveying the magnitude of what they were experiencing. The universe is vast, intelligent, and patient. Your presence here is rare. Observe, learn, and respect the balance. Alex and Mia felt awe, humility, and joy intertwined motions so profound they had no human vocabulary to describe them. As they traveled through this interstellar tapestry, they saw civilizations thriving in harmony, networks of energy connecting stars and planets, and beings whose forms were both familiar and unfathomable. The pulse resonated within them, an echo of the gift and the test, reinforcing understanding, clarity, and purpose. The whispers reminded them constantly, knowledge is infinite, but responsibility is infinite as well. Observe, act with wisdom, and honor the gift. Alex realized that the beings had entrusted them not only with experience, but with stewardship, a role that spanned dimensions, realms, and civilizations far beyond Earth. Mia felt a gentle tug at her consciousness, drawing her attention to a pattern of energy that rippled like water across the void. She recognized it as a reflection of choices, what humanity had done, what humanity could do, and what humans might yet achieve. The pulse amplified the vision, emphasizing both potential and consequence. The whispers reassured, do not fear humanity's limitations. Observation and wisdom are the keys. You are guides, witnesses, and participants now. A shiver of awe ran through her, not of fear, but of reverent understanding. They were part of something greater, a continuum connecting life, energy, and consciousness across galaxies. Hours, though time felt meaningless here, passed as they navigated this cosmic journey. Alex and Mia encountered beings of unimaginable form, communicated through thought and resonance rather than speech, and experienced knowledge as pure perception rather than words. The pulse guided them gently, reinforcing lessons learned, emphasizing restraint, and encouraging exploration tempered with humility. The vastness of the universe, once terrifying, now felt like a canvas on which understanding and observation could flourish. Eventually, the sphere slowed, and a serene realm of luminous structures unfolded before them, geometries of light and energy forming what seemed like a sanctuary. The figures guided Alex and Mia into its center, where the pulse settled into a calm resonance, threading into their minds with soft whispers. You have crossed the threshold. You are no longer merely observers. Your journey has begun. The universe awaits your awareness, your questions, and your comprehension. Step into it fully. Alex and Mia exchanged a glance, hearts swelling with both wonder and clarity. They understood the enormity of the moment. Their lives on Earth were complete, yet this was only the beginning of a journey beyond imagination. In the following moments, the pulse contracted gently, lifting them fully into the heart of the sanctuary. The figures, now radiant beyond physical comprehension, encircled them in a delicate embrace of energy. The whispers, melodic and profound, conveyed a final message. You have passed, you have chosen, you have trusted. The universe is open to those ready to perceive. We will guide and you will learn. Observation, patience, and wisdom are eternal companions. Alex and Mia felt themselves merge with the pulse, consciousness expanding, perceiving flows of energy, life, and intelligence interwoven across realities. And then, in a calm, almost gentle exhale, the figures receded. The pulse dimmed to a soft, steady rhythm, leaving Alex and Mia suspended in the cosmos, fully aware, fully alive, and fully part of something far greater than they had ever known. For the first time, they felt completely unbound by Earth, free to explore, to learn, and to witness the universe in its entirety. The whispers lingered, faint but reassuring, like a lullaby of cosmic awareness. Your journey continues. Observe, learn, protect, trust, though Earth, the hill, and all familiar life had vanished from view. Alex and Mia felt no fear. Instead, they felt purpose, connection, and profound wonder. They had become part of the continuum, participants in a story that spanned galaxies, civilizations, and dimensions. And in that quiet, infinite space, they understood a truth that would resonate forever. Knowledge, responsibility, and trust were not merely gifts, they were pathways to transcendence. And so, dear listeners, Alex and Mia's journey reminds us that the universe is far bigger than we can imagine, full of mysteries waiting to be discovered, and lessons that challenge us to grow, observe, and reflect. If you enjoyed traveling beyond the stars with us tonight, make sure to subscribe to Starlight Stories, for more true to imagination tales of wonder, mystery, and cosmic secrets. Every story brings you closer to the unknown, and every chapter reminds us that there is more to see, more to learn, and more to dream. Close your eyes, let the pulse guide your imagination, and join us again for the next journey into the cosmos. The universe is vast, and your adventure is only beginning. And your adventure is only beginning.